and then that makes the search a little bit faster, and you don't have to worry about how they're entering it, stuff like that.
Ever had a user search by phone number?
It depends on the company. The one I'm working with now, they think in phone numbers. So
and I've even heard of some companies using them as their key because it's relatively unique. Depending on the business that you're in, it could be very easily unique.
That's right. You said whenever the field, you make the field auto enter calculation thing. You finance calculation. And you call that custom function.
Don't replace if it has content.
Right.
Yeah.
I like to use this part of a script step. So when upon exit, it will actually run that custom function. So as soon as you type in that field, as soon as you enter it, it'll format it for you. I've probably got 30 custom functions in the solution now. None that I've written, but probably 30 in there. And then we just bought the 24 per year package, and they give you 4 custom functions that they need to run their software. You just have to add 4 more to it. It's strange.
So, yeah.
On the,
I like him. Yeah,
I do too, but it's really strange.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some of the like standard, like the phone number and things like that. But then there's also like where for rental services, our sister company, we put together like formatting to like give the material a face. Say that like this is kind of like the description of it, and you've got to concatenate these 5 or 6 things all together. And what I like about the custom function is that you can go make a change to the custom function easier than you can get into schema sometimes and make a change to your calculation there. So even though it's not a hard calculation, you can get in there and make that change. And you have to be careful because it doesn't always propagate the old stuff, but at least, moving forward, you know that it's going to reflect. Well, we needed extra spaces between the divider pipes or, however we were formatting it.
Just that script.
Well, I do that too. But then I have to turn the modification stuff off because I don't want to be the modifier of record on a million records.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you're logging all the changes, then you're good. I found myself as the modifier of all my records quite a few times.
Any it's like the phone number is a standard one. Any like way out in left field, like you never expected to write a custom function for it, but then you found a use for one, whether it was one you wrote or one you found.
I know I have some weird ones in there.
I use a list one every once in a while that it has a bunch of stuff put in, so you can feed it a list, return limited values, and put in something Englishy like starts with. So you can give it a list of values and say starts with A. Okay. And it'll pull out all the values in that list that start with A. Or it can be greater than or less than or multiple characters or equal. You can put in all that kind of language.
Okay.
And it's the custom function does all that work. And that's useful.
Okay.
Occasionally. Some stupid need like that.
Right.
I got, I have a field right now that's formatted as text for this CRM that I'm working on. It's a date, they treat it as a date field, but it's defined as a text field. And I need to convert it to a date field. The only problem is right now, the way that I have the table set up is that, the text was typed in is month, day, year, but the solution is going year, month, date. I don't know how that's, like, would that be a custom function that, I was thinking about creating a new, just a blank field, and experimenting with how to bring over.
Does data keep coming in like that? Or is it a one-time thing?
There's, right now it keeps coming in slowly. I mean, we're talking maybe 2-3 records a day, if that.
And I'd probably use a custom function and put it in an auto enter.
There's like 70-some thousand records now that I gotta.
Yeah, you do a replace. Take care of those, but, when
that,
I get stuff like that, which, if I'm doing imports from somewhere that I don't have control over, and they bring in the dates like that happens all the time.
Okay.
So I have a custom function that'll just, swap around the month and day.
Yeah.
And that's not a hard one to write. And that would be a good, if you want to learn how to
do it.
That's a good one to work on.
Because I think that's how I've learned to write some of the ones I've done, is I've gone to the Brian Dunning site, found one that was close or whatever, and then you kind of reverse engineer it to see how it works, and then you can kind of build your own.
How does it check, like, for, spelling errors and stuff like that? Like, when you write a custom function,
You can do a terrible job, and it just won't work.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that's.
okay.
Yeah.
Does it check it at all? Like when you go to save it?
If it's like if you use some of the FileMaker functions within it and you format those wrong, you'll get an error when you try to close, right?
Yeah.
If you put like a case and you don't close it or something.
Yeah, like
Okay.
if you have like parenthesis mismatches, and like if you use like the let function to like declare the variables as you go, which I do a lot in custom functions just because it makes it more readable.
Yeah.
Is that if you have like an extra semicolon, or you forget a semicolon because you add another parameter or variable or whatever, then it'll be grumpy at you. And
Because I literally saw it for the first time today. I forgot that's what the topic was tonight. The whole thing. I mean, it's like pure, coincidence. But the one I did there, I was looking through, and it was date manipulation kind of thing. I was like, let's see what this is about. So I put it in, and then it relied on another function, another custom function that I didn't have in there yet.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So how do I? And I was like, wow. It took me 15 minutes to figure out how to do it, but then I'll just blow it away. And then like 30 seconds to put both in after that. It was pretty neat once I played around with it a little bit. That's always terrified me. Not terrified me, but it's like
it's intimidating from a FileMaker perspective.
Yeah.
FileMaker so forgiving and so leads you everywhere, and custom functions like programming.
Yeah.
So.
But without the error correction and stuff like that, you normally have in a compiler.
In the documentation, you can put in a script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I've opened up some custom functions to try to understand what's going on, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't even know where I am here.
Yeah, most of them that I've found don't put any kind of document.
Yeah.
And some, depending on who the developer is, they'll put a bunch of comment lines at the top describing exactly how it works, like the list one. Custom list, that's what it is. So they describe everything that it does. Build any list based on all native or custom functions involving a blah, blah, blah. So you can say, in the middle of this one, it's like each repeating variable content is parsed in order to get out the string ready for, it describes everything that the function's doing. It's long. I don't fit into this one, but it does a lot.
The working days one was good. The number of work days in a week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they got that. Yeah, that Excel. I think numbers.
If anybody ever uses numbers.
we have one that a whole solution is based around. So our students fill out this form every time they interact with the patient, and they submit that data through a Qualtrics survey form. And then on every morning, I pull all the records out of Qualtrics and I stick them in our FileMaker database. And when the student needs a report for how many interactions they've had, they log in, and it takes their user login and the dates that they want the report between. And there's like 80 or 90 checkboxes that need a number in them. And so it finds all the records where that student is in the name display field between those two, and it's an execute SQL. It counts and execute SQL where, and each field has two parameters that it sends. One is which row in the Qualtrics it is, and whether there's a field that gets turned on or off, whether it's a real patient or a simulated patient. And when I had that student with me a couple years ago, he did this. Whether he wrote that himself or he went and got it somewhere, I don't know. But the solution wouldn't work without it. You know, there's all those fields, and they all use the exact same. The custom function is used over and over and over again. So anytime you're going to do something more than twice, script it.
Yeah.
So this does.
Yeah, that's what I found is helpful, because you know it's something that, like the phone number, now when people have cell phone, how many phone number fields do they have? You can use one custom function to correct. You don't have to repeat that code, 3 or 4 times. You have the custom function that does it for you. So that's nice.
I do my watch
I put together a little demo with a couple custom functions that I really like that seem to find their way into like every solution I do. If you guys are interested, I can.
Sure.
Believe it or not, one of them is the phone number function. Provided my computer doesn't crash again, so let's see what happens here.
One I use in almost everything, trim 4, which is one of those, there's a bunch of those functions too, but they get rid of all leading and trailing space, whether it's tabs, returns, spaces, anything. And there's no built-in FileMaker function to do that all like at once. There's functions to get rid of double spaces and stuff between words, there's stuff like that. But this one, if you're importing data, again, that's got that entry. It just gets rid of everything leading and trailing. It'll leave returns within the text.
So, like, would you apply that to like a name, like first name field? Or?
So I still do sometimes, depending on how the data entry is. Now that in FileMaker, since we didn't used to, you haven't been around super long. We didn't used to be able to tell a field to, as you're typing, to go to the next field.
Right,
Return. So it would fill with return. So I would put it on that. Now, I don't worry so much about like first and last. I don't let people put returns in there.
Yeah.
But a street address, I always use a single field as all, so that they can hit return to add multiple lines. And whenever they get out of that field, I run trim 4 on that to strip off. If they hit return 4 times, not thinking,
what's it called? Trim
and then the number 4, and that's a stunning has that. And I put that ends up in almost every solution just because it's so useful and it's super fast. It's not recursive.
Here's the version of the phone number one that we use when we use it is that it actually, if it's less than the 10 digits it expects, it like changes the text red and lets you know that something's wrong there.
Which is nice, and it keeps what you originally put.
That's what I like.
So you
It
can
keeps what
correct
you
a
put.
mistake and not have to.
Because like this one we got out of like the FileMaker 9 how to training, like I don't even know who did it. It's been so long ago, but it just kind of keeps getting moved along. But then, you fix the phone number, and like this one, I have it set up to where it's like the USA standard, but it has like, a couple different options that you could pass, and it uses a mask, and that's where it gets like the dependent
Is
function.
the mask part of the function? Like you pass the mask and the number?
Sort of. The way this one is set up is there's like the main custom function, and then there's two dependent, or it's dependent on two other custom functions. It's this one here, this format phone. So yeah, it does have, like, you pass it, okay, the mask by name, and then it picks, so like there isn't one here that's just, 3-3-4. So you could add that one in, then pass it, but then it uses this custom function here, mask replace, that then looks at your mask, and everywhere there's an asterisk, it puts a number in, or whatever, or the string that you pass it. And then there's also one for the color, which is, or no, I guess actually, I think this is an actual FileMaker function. It's not I guess.
FN text color looks like a function.
Yeah. I forget where I found that one, but that's one where you could you tell it by name, like the Apple color, and then it pulls the RGB back, so you don't have to try and guess, like what shade of gray am I really going to get?
Do on a PC?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I think it pulls up the RGB. It still
pulls up the RGB because it's just going by. There's a hard-coded list in the function of every name, and then it's not like the OS isn't translating.
Yeah, like that one is.
But the color's not.
This might have actually been one I wrote myself. I'm not sure. Well, I picked all the standard Mac color palette, and I just picked all of those. I picked those color names.
You have to type in all the RGBs.
And that was, I think I actually I might have even typed it somewhere else and then copied and pasted it in here because I didn't want to type it all in there.
Seems like something you would enjoy.
Yeah. Now, does anybody use I don't think I actually have an example of this, but the name ID function by Fabrice Nordman?
Oh, I've used it in the past. I have one solution where I use it, but it doesn't, I don't see where it comes up in my development that often.
Okay.
But that's a neat function. That's impressive.
Yeah, that one, just because I'm me, I had to rename it so that it falls in line with my naming convention, of course. But like this is one of those ones, Dave, where it's got, all the information, about it. A lot of places where I'll use this one is when I'm doing like set field by name, because if you change the name of the table or the field that it's based on, you're in a world of hurt, because if you change it by accident, it's not going to propagate through like a normal FileMaker set field. So that's where I'm able to use this, is I can get the ID number, so I know if I accidentally change the name of the table, I can still get its name by the number and then put that into my set field by name. Yeah.
How do I like that line? FileMaker 10 and the get field name function. This function is almost useless. With an F field parameter remains.
Yes. Like for example, I'll just show you here real quick. Like in my there's no relationships with this one, but I got like contacts. So if I wanted to, and I'll just dive into the data viewer here. So what that's done is that this one has 4 parameters, of which the third one, or the last one, I don't need for this particular one. So it's telling me that is the internal FileMaker ID of that table, and it'll do the table, it'll do fields, it'll do layouts. Because sometimes I've gotten myself into trouble because I'm going to a layout by calculation, and then I change the name of the layout and forget that that text is hard-coded somewhere. So this has, when I could think ahead and say, oh, I better be careful here, I'll use this to get the name of the layout. But then if you turn around and take that number, put it into the function, it returns the name. So then, so there's a couple steps that you would have to go through to use this function, but then what that does, scroll back out, monitor that, and if I go in here, if I change it to that, because I'm identifying it by number, now it's telling me that that's the table name. So I could say anywhere I need to refer to that table, use, set my variable equal to the value of that function, and even if the table name changes, I'm still going to get the current name of that table when I need to use it. So that's really the only thing that I use this for, primarily, is to get the table names, but it's such a cool function. It's like, yeah, I just go ahead and throw it in. The other one that I use is one that I found, I think it was on Brian Dunning's site, that's for doing error messages. Do you guys do anything with?
I know what you're talking about. No.
Yeah, that's another one that, like,
when it returns just a number, and you're gonna go and look it up.
Go look it up. So, like, this was just a simple. I told it to find any state that starts with the letter Z, because I knew there weren't going to be any in this particular data set that I have to work with. So that's, typical, FileMaker. Okay, here's the error code. Well, that's a custom function where this guy here, where it's just function error code. Again, I renamed it because every custom function starts with FN. That's how I roll. But then, in the custom function, because somebody else built it, it's been fairly easy to maintain. It just, you have to go through it with every new release and say, okay, what error codes have they added, or what have they removed? But then all it is, and all it is a case statement with every error code and the, like I said, I don't know how the guy, did it to start, but now that I have it once, that's like one of the first custom functions I import into everything I build. So that way, because usually doing a find, okay, if I get a 401, it's because something's missing. But what if something happens that you're not expecting, and you get some random number, you don't know what it means, or this way you can easily show the custom dialog with some text and what it means. So
That's on his site. Yeah. Auto update error to English.
Yeah. Usually I'll put in there if I found it on Brian Dunning's, or if I found it somewhere else. So this one here, I'm not 100% sure.
Looking through the script, and there's
Author 2 Gecko.
Yeah. So I might have found it on his site, or he may have been the guy that shared it on Brian Dunning's. So. But like I said, that's one I think is, because we had tried something way back in the day where we actually had a table that listed all of them, but then you had to make sure you had either a Artesian join, or it was on your graph somewhere that you could get it, and this is just all in a custom function, and all it is a case statement with 500 options.
They don't change.
Yeah. So.
maybe FileMaker 17.
There won't need to be any errors in that. It's perfect.
So anyway, those are the ones that I
just have Siri tell you what kind of database you want to build.
Oh, actually, you know what? I got one more. Because the function itself is pretty simple. It is, and this one uses recursion, which I don't know you guys are familiar, those that don't do custom functions know what, for at least in FileMaker terms, the best description I've heard, because I don't know if you saw it, Chad Novotny did a one on custom functions and recursion at DevCon a few years ago.
I don't remember.
Okay, well, his example was it's like the Russian nesting dolls,
Oh, yeah.
where it's like the first layer is the first time you call the function. It says, well, wait a minute, I got to check and see what's inside. So you open it up, and then there's another call of that custom function, and then it just kind of keeps nesting on itself until you get to the inside, and then it starts to pass all of that stuff back out. That's where, and they say that's where the custom functions have some powers, because like a FileMaker function you can't call in itself, but custom functions you can. So that's what gives you that recursion capability.
How many nested dolls can you have? I found that that's awesome.
Yes. It was it 10,000 if it's tailing recursion, and what, 50,000 if it's leading? I've never been able to figure out what's tailing and what's leading. I know the numbers, but I've never been able to figure out, okay, what am I doing here? You know? So I don't know. Do you have a way?
I can't describe which one's which. I wrote functions that use recursion that use. I know they're using tail recursion. I'm not sure what leading means.
Yeah. Because I think it has something to do whether you, like if you have, like pass the whole result in to get it out, or if it's just you pass a piece and then it just slowly builds if you step back. I've never heard a full definition of what tail or leading. Yeah, that's all that matters. But yeah, this one here, I'll show you the function first. Is because you have like, well, there's the list function, but it gets you a list of values in a related table. Like, well, what if I want a list of values in the table that I'm in to do something with? So I found this one here. This was probably another Brian Dunning one that I've renamed to protect the innocent.
Yeah, Brian James on there.
And all it does is it says, like, if it uses like your found count and a starting position. So like the one parameter is always one, because you're always going to start at the first position of your found count. And then it just uses the get nth record, and then just keeps adding one until you get the whole list back. Because I've run into situations where I've wanted to, get the list of values in this field or that field for whatever reason. So this allowed me to do that easily.
Please do this for, if I had a list of 80.
Potentially, yeah.
Or multiple lists, they want like.
I mean, or at least that, or I will say potentially. Because like the way I did it just for this simple demo is that I got another one here that finds everybody in the database that's the first name of T, and there's 2,100 or something there. But then I use that function to get me a list of all of those names, and then I pass it into the unique values function that's not a custom function, and it pulls out the list of the 103 unique names that start with the letter T that are used in this particular found set. So that, I don't know of a way to get a list like that in native FileMaker without using functions. Is there?
I get a count of occurrences. I mean, I can script it.
Okay.
But I'm sure there's a.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that's the last example that I have.
Another one I put in those solutions is just called developer. And it's one of Matt Petrowski's functions. So it's a function called developer, and it returns it's a very simple function that just, you put in a list of whoever your developers are on the solution. And it returns a 1 if the current user is a developer and a 0 if it's not. So what that kind of lets you do very quickly and nicely is, like, if you want to hide objects on the screen, you know, you drop a field on the screen that's for the developer, but you don't want everyone else to see it. So under hide object when, developer. So hide it if it's, or not, I'm sorry, hide it if not developer. And it's easy to read, it's easy to realize what's going on.
That's cool.
And it comes in useful all over the, you know, you put it within case statements, have to put it within scripts. If developer, then run this part of the script, otherwise run this part of the script.
Yeah, I always type out if account
Yeah,
or privileges.
exactly, yeah. So and it lets you do, because you're putting in, I think in the function, it has the, it's just checking the actual account name. So you add your account name to that, and if you have another developer, that way, if other people have full access, they still won't see it.
Yeah.
If they, you know, so it won't be in their way.
Okay, yeah.
So that one, yeah, that's useful.
There's another one that I forgot that I did, and I don't know if the function was the best way to do it or not, but in a case where I had a button bar, and you could have up to 5 visible buttons, so it would resize. The button bar was a certain width, and if there was one related item, it was 1 button. If there were 2, there were 2, and so on, up to a maximum of 5. So that same space would be filled up. And if it needed 5 buttons, but the point size was like 18 points when it was just 1 value, but now you have 5 buttons and they're all calculated text, it became unreadable. Things would be cut off. So I did a function that would look at the length of the text and the number of buttons, and if there was just 1 button, it let it be the 18 points or whatever it was. And if there were 2 buttons and the length of the text was greater than so many characters, it would reduce the text and so on. So that,
you can change
with those 5 buttons, yeah, because there's a text size function that's just part of FileMaker's design function.
Oh.
But there's nothing that lets you dynamically resize your text. So you have to script it to do that. So I put it into a custom function so it could look at the number of buttons and the length of the value of what the button was supposed to say. And if it was greater than a certain amount, it would reduce the text size.
Yeah, oh, that's cool.
So that each button could potentially be a different size, so you could read all of the text
Right.
part of it.
But no sense of making it teeny tiny if there was only 2 options or 3 options.
Exactly. You didn't want to just pick the smallest font size.
Yeah.
Or, wanted to be as readable as possible, but reduce it if you need it.
All right, so with that's everything I got. So
Thank you.
thank you all. Thanks for everybody for sharing. And all custom function. It's like, we all know how to go to Brian's house. Exactly. Yeah. As you know how to do that, your custom function.
I just can't believe it.